For decades, Meg Ryan was known as the face of romance in Hollywood. Her smile became a cultural symbol. Her voice felt familiar, like someone audiences already trusted. And at the center of her most iconic era stood one director who helped shape not only her career, but an entire genre: Rob Reiner. Their films didn't just succeed, they defined a generation's idea of love. But behind the laughter, behind the famous lines and perfect endings, there was a quieter story, one Meg Ryan kept to herself for years, until now. When Meg Ryan first stepped into Hollywood, she wasn't chasing stardom, she was chasing work. Small roles, modest expectations, and a determination to survive in an industry that rarely waited for anyone. She was talented, yes, but so were thousands of others. What separated Meg was not ambition, but instinct. She understood people. She understood vulnerability. And that was exactly what Rob Reiner saw when their paths crossed. Rob Reiner wasn't just a director. By the late 1980s, he was a storyteller with authority. He had credibility, power, and something even more valuable in Hollywood: trust. Actors believed in him, studios listened to him, and audiences followed wherever he went. When he cast Meg Ryan in When Harry Met Sally, it wasn't an obvious choice at the time. She wasn't yet the romantic icon she would become. But Reiner believed something rare happens when an actor isn't trying to be iconic. They become real. On set, Meg Ryan later admitted, Rob Reiner created an environment that felt safe, but demanding. He pushed honesty over performance. He asked uncomfortable questions, demanded emotional precision, and refused artificial charm. For Meg, this was both terrifying and transformative. She wasn't allowed to hide behind sweetness. She had to expose insecurity, contradiction, and emotional messiness. And in doing so, she found the version of herself the world would fall in love with. The success of When Harry Met Sally changed everything overnight. Meg Ryan became America's sweetheart, a label that sounded flattering but carried invisible weight. Rob Reiner, meanwhile, became the architect of romantic realism. Their collaboration was praised as magical, effortless, and joyful. But years later, Meg would quietly reveal that the process was far more complicated than the finished film suggested. She spoke about how Rob Reiner demanded emotional availability at all times, not just during scenes, between takes, during rehearsals, even off camera. He wanted the emotional truth of the character to bleed into the actor. For Meg, this meant staying emotionally open in an industry that already consumed people whole. While audiences saw charm, she was living in a constant state of emotional exposure. Meg Ryan has said that Rob Reiner didn't mistreat her. He didn't shout, he didn't belittle. What made the experience intense was something more subtle: control through vision. His clarity was so strong that there was little room to protect yourself. You either trusted him completely or you didn't belong in his world. Meg trusted him, and that trust cost her more than people realized. As her fame grew, so did expectations. Hollywood didn't just want Meg Ryan to act, it wanted her to remain the same forever. The same laugh, the same warmth, the same vulnerability. And because Rob Reiner's films defined her image, she felt trapped inside a version of herself that no longer felt real. Years later, she would admit that the romantic roles slowly erased parts of her identity. What few people noticed was how Meg Ryan began stepping away from the very genre that made her famous. She didn't rebel loudly, she didn't criticize the system publicly, she simply disappeared from it. And for a long time, people blamed her. They said she lost her edge, that she changed, that she made bad choices. What they didn't understand was that Meg Ryan was trying to survive the expectations created by success. In later reflections, Meg described Rob Reiner as a man who genuinely loved storytelling, but also one who believed deeply in shaping people to fit a story. She acknowledged that he gave her opportunities that changed her life, but she also revealed that the industry used those opportunities to lock her into a single emotional identity, one she never consented to carry forever. As time passed, Meg Ryan watched Hollywood evolve. She watched younger actresses face the same pressures with fewer protections, and slowly she began to speak, not with anger, but with clarity. She said the most dangerous thing about Hollywood wasn't cruelty, it was invisibility. When you become an idea instead of a person, people stop seeing your limits. Rob Reiner, in Her Truth, was never a villain. He was a symbol of a system that rewards emotional labor without accounting for its cost. A system where brilliance can coexist with blindness, where creating magic on screen often requires someone to absorb the emotional consequences off-screen. Meg Ryan's truth wasn't explosive, it wasn't scandalous. That's what made it powerful. She didn't accuse, she reflected. She acknowledged gratitude and grief in the same breath. She spoke about how working with Rob Reiner taught her everything about honesty and nothing about boundaries. In the end, Meg Ryan didn't reclaim her story by attacking the past. She reclaimed it by naming it, by admitting that success doesn't always feel like victory, that sometimes the roles that define you also confine you, and that even the most beloved collaborations can leave scars that only time reveals. Today, when audiences re-watch those films, they still laugh, they still cry, they still quote the lines. But now there's another layer, a quieter one, the understanding that behind every perfect ending was a real woman carrying the emotional weight of being everyone's idea of love, except her own. And that, finally, is the truth Meg Ryan waited years to tell.